Hello again, it's me, Daniil Tuseev, the Il-2 Shturmovik producer. Viktor Sechnoi, that's me. Yep, that's him. Our historical consultant and mission designer. We're here at the studio of our friends at Game World Navigator. Today, we will be addressing your questions. And the first question is, are career operations planned? Oh, shall we tell them? Okay, let's tell them. Here's the thing. We were unable to do the Pacific earlier because it was the kind of thing you have to prepare way in advance. You have to start working on the project alongside your current one, as there's a lot of research involved. Our old management strategy just did not allow for that. But the new one does. We're currently working on deck operations for our next project. Not our new project we're working on right now, but the one that will follow next. It's a strategic research, and we're already on it. Next question. Will the team be implementing DirectX 12? Our new project supports the DirectX 12 API. Everything's already running on it. That work is complete already, and everything worked out. We expect some issues during the debugging because, in beta, various systems will surely have some bugs, which is always a thing when you change the API. However, currently, everything seems to work just fine. The next question comes from Nars. Are there plans to expand the pilot RPG component of the sim? This one is for you. It's about the new career and the way we see it. Yes, there is such a plan. We'll try to give the players more control over the squadron and more influence on the outcome of their actions on the map. They'll be in charge. Truth be told, the pilot career in the new project is no longer just about piloting. The players will go all the way to becoming a regiment's commanding officer with all associated functions. And their tasks will be different. But you'll still have the missions, and you'll still be able to fly, of course. Yeah, it will be our classic career with the additional functions of a unit commander, giving them the ability to make a difference. You will also be able to request ammo and fuel from the headquarters. Next question. Are higher res 3D models, multiple 4K texture maps, and PBR textures on the horizon? That we have just answered. Yeah, this one we discussed in the previous part. We will certainly have PBR textures. I'm not sure what PBR textures on the horizon means, but our entire project is based on PBR. On the horizon means in the future here. Oh, in the future. Yeah? Yeah. It's not on the horizon, it's already here. All the objects in the new project will have PBR textures. The screenshots from the new project that you saw in the previous part show PBR textures. Next question. What is the process for deciding which planes will be added to your games? This one is for me. First of all, we consider the popularity of the plane. Aircraft such as the Ta-152, Yak-3 or La-7 could be added to the game outside of the career mode, since these are popular Uber planes that give the players lots of fun wiping out their opponents. On the other hand, the Yar-80 is not as tough as the Ta-152, but it's probably more attractive. Using it in career could fill the gaps. It also introduces a new type. We don't have the Romanian nation yet, but we will have a Romanian plane. It went down the same way as the Italian Macchi MC-202 Folgore. Next question. Plans for new damaged engine sounds? In the new project, yes. Yeah, we plan on some improvements and more effects. The question about the damaged engine is a good one because the model is elaborate. You could have different units of the engine damaged. You could even have cylinder scoring. But there were no visual effects for any of that. So whenever something serious happened to the engine, it just malfunctioned. With the new project, we intend to show the players what is happening to their planes and engines as best we can. Also, we will implement the damage to more units, like turbochargers and reduction gearboxes. You will be able to damage them independently. I believe this also includes the propeller pitch control. Next question. Will we have a flight model check? I picked the questions myself, and this one I chose on purpose as a reminder. Dear players, when you say something's wrong with our flight model, would you please provide solid research that you, your friend, or someone else has conducted on what exactly is wrong? Like, here are some references, and here are our tests, and these two don't match. Basically, we do our best to read all messages and provide feedback. However, we find only about 5% of the claims to be actual issues at best. Now, I think flight models, they will refer you to the story of the author who wrote a book on World War I. My understanding of the problem with that book is that it was based on engineering calculations with incomplete sources listed. The book was about World War I flight models. There are engineering calculations, but to trust these calculations, we have to repeat them. But the references are incomplete, so we cannot verify the work. And we're not changing anything out of pure trust. So if the author is willing to improve his work, provide references or a comparative analysis of some sources, and then support his position with some solid argument, we will consider. Until then, we're not willing to trust a model just because it is published in a book. Next question. Can the ground units be visually reworked? All 3D content for our new project is designed from scratch. This includes ground units, trees, buildings, airfield textures, and planes. For the earlier projects, you have to understand that those kinds of reworks cost, and it would take quite a lot due to the large amount of existing content. Remaking all that content over again would be highly unlikely to pay off, because nothing comes for free these days. Next question. What is the priority for technical development in the new sim? i.e., AI improvements, engine modeling, aerodynamic modeling, kinematics, etc. And 2, what are the plans for the AI development? Will the focus be on more complex behaviors, lower processing load, large formations, or something else? That's asking to increase the load while keeping the performance high. It's dialectics in its purest form. We might as well invite a philosopher. They also ask about large formations. In the new project, we will implement a simplified plane technology. That's for the matter of large formations. We'll be able to have dozens of bombers in a formation and they won't load the system as much. The question about AI is complicated. We do indeed have plans to develop and improve artificial intelligence, and we currently have a spot open for a programming engineer. It should be a dedicated specialist, but for now, the job is done by one of our programmers, which distracts them from the tasks at hand. Meanwhile, we were able to determine that the primary cause of claims associated with the AI is the wingmen's behavior when taking orders from players acting as leaders. Some of these problems we will solve anyway, even if our open spot remains vacant. It's also about aiming and shooting. Yeah, we intend to work out this major vector anyway, whether we find a dedicated specialist for the job or not. Should we find the man, there are some ideas ready on how to adjust AI behavior in air battles. But that's for now. Well, let's hope for the best. 10th question. I can't see the nickname though. That's because it comes from the Russian forums. That list didn't have nicknames. With this unnamed project in progress, will you give up on new planes for the existing BOS platform? Definitely not. Earlier in our conversation, we provided a list of upcoming planes we intend to release. And what exactly do you mean by give up? We are in constant search of outsourced developers to expand the amount of content that we produce. I believe we should expect some progress in this regard in 2024. The blue players still hope to see a Stuka D5. Any chances of that? That was also discussed earlier. I'll tell you something. During the development of the Stuka D3 in 2013, we made certain provisions in advance. Its texture has some space and the outlines of the outer wings for the D5 model. Back then, we just didn't have enough time. We have high hopes for this to happen. Following up on that question, the red players hope to get the IL-4 and the twin-engine heavy fighter. They mean the PE-3BIS. Because they've complained that the RAF has the Mosquito, the US has the Lightning, but the USSR didn't get a similar aircraft. The Germans also got the 110 and the 410. Here's what I have to say about the IL-4. The IL-4 is a bomber, and a bomber is extremely time-consuming to create. We have to choose between making one bomber and 3 fighters. Sadly, player interest in bombers is not 3 times greater than their interest in fighters. It is greater, but only to a small extent. So this always poses a dilemma. Choices. Yeah, this is a hard choice. So it is what it is for now. Next question. Should we expect the Bf-109G2 with the ATA-2 power setting, the Messerschmitt's G10 and the Fokker A9? If we get a window in the schedule to produce it, at least there are plans. We can't promise anything. But currently, we are working on the Spitfire Mk9C, being the earlier version of the Spitfire Mk9E. Therefore, we're taking steps to modify these existing planes. Chances are we will continue to do so. Yeah, we hope to keep introducing new modifications bit by bit. Moving on, do the producers enjoy developing the game as a joint combat sim, or do they see it as a piston engine plane sim? Well, we have tanks for you. You can go hard on them, or they will go hard on you. Then again, the new career mode creates a whole layer of gameplay over the flight simulation. You will take the role of a regiment's commanding officer and get everything that comes with that. So for our new project, we're creating a combat simulator on an intermediate officer level. Next question. Do you plan on fixing or adding the DM for 7.7 and 12.7 Brownings? It seems like they fire the regular armor-piercing cartridges, dealing pitiful damage. So the outcome is totally dependent on luck. This question refers to API rounds, which are AP, incendiary, and tracer. Pitiful damage. An aircraft hit by a salvo ends up in pieces. There is one question, of course. Did you land your shots? In our new project, we intend to develop the damage model to make it more feasible. The AP cartridges will work better on specific units, fully penetrating through aircraft and armor, etc. The incendiary cartridges will do a better job lighting fuel tanks, starting fires, etc. The problem is, Great Battles doesn't have that. Hitting the fuel tank with incendiary rounds won't make it more likely to catch fire. The game just doesn't have a feature for handling that. Also, you can't deny the fact that in the 1960s, the Americans gave up on stuffing planes with more 12.7 and .50 caliber machine guns and switched to cannons. It probably wasn't a bunch of 12.7 guns doing just as well as cannons that motivated that change. They probably did it for a good reason, right? Next question. When should we expect the new map for the Battle of Leningrad? Well, the Finnish team is currently working on the map of Karelia, which will have some of Leningrad too. It's on its way. We hope the guys won't let us down, and that they'll complete it on schedule. We'll do our best to add the career mode to it. Yep, they're working on it. They've conducted thorough research on Leningrad by now. They are designing some of its unique buildings, but you should understand that Leningrad is a big city with vast port facilities. Leningrad comes with a huge port. It's no easy task for a team of enthusiasts, but they are persevering and doing their best. They expect to make the second phase by the end of 2024, and this will probably include Leningrad. Next question. Can we hope to get a Bf-110 F2 collector plane? You can. The F2 is a modification of the E2. It has a different engine and spinner. The only thing is that we might choose the 190A9 instead of this 110. Everything is possible. Time will show what we'll end up with. We have a list of plane types and have modifications added to them pretty fast, which we can then implement into the existing projects. Next question. Will you be adding hand grenades that fighter pilots could drop out of the cockpit? Hand grenades? Yeah. To get naughty, instead of the handgun, etc. This question refers more to the World War I Halberstadt CL-2 planes, which used to drop stick grenades. I think this should be introduced along with an achievement. A player who manages to hit anything at all with a grenade should get a $1,000 reward and an extremist title. No, seriously, picture hitting something. That is, it is just for scare. Moving on, do you plan on adding Soviet planes from 1944-1945? Yes, this was discussed earlier. We'd like to get the Yak-3, La-7, Il-10 and Tu-2 in. We hope to get the opportunity at least. It depends on the load, plans, etc. Basically, this requires some free hands. Next question. Will you make the B-25 and B-26 flyable? Nice word. Flyable. Let's clarify. They mean making it player flyable. Currently, we have the B-25 and B-26 AI-controlled bombers. They can act both as your allies and opponents, but you can't fly them. So the question is whether or not we intend to make them available for players. Not sure about the B-26. Look at the pictures of its cockpit. It's a massive task to make it controllable. There's loads of stuff there. I think the same goes for the 25. The B-25 has a better chance, though, with the plans to develop the Pacific in the future, as we mentioned earlier. Yeah, it fits the Pacific better. Mitchells really rocked there. You could say that they played a crucial role in certain events, such as those in New Guinea. Yeah, that's as far as the flyable bombers are concerned. In this case, the B-25 has a good chance. Yeah, I believe that the B-25 will become flyable someday. Next question. Will you be implementing a normal flaps control for the MiG-3? This is for you. This is your favorite plane. I don't know what's in there. There are flap limiters, and also the separate release and retraction flap controls. I want to be able to operate them all autonomously. As Viktor said, the MiG-3 is my favorite plane. And if I say that yes, there will be, that would be an abuse of power. On one hand, that is. And on the other hand, I will probably abuse my power one day and do it because I really like it and want to do so. Next question. Are any improvements such as map textures, the gunfire, explosions, and impact effects planned? We have updated the game's explosion effects pretty recently, about 2 years ago, and they are rather decent now, even compared to the newest videos of our competitors. They aren't really better, but they aren't worse than theirs either. And I don't see any urgent need to update such effects as the firing and explosions, since they are already good. But, as I said, we are going to create all the basic effects from scratch in our new project. Next question. When will the plane stop feeling like overdamped rail flights? Well, that's a strange question. Overdamped rail flights. I thought we had complaints about dolphins, but now they're damped. Some people actually dislike wobbling, but here he tells us about the damped rail flights. Dear friend, we'd like to know. What are rail flights? Yes, we'd very much like to know what the basis for your flight model complaint is. Because many of our plane pilots who understand the kind of restrictions that a monitor has, or those who have tried the VR mode without those restrictions, restricted instead by their own vestibular systems, say that it feels very, very close to the real deal. So we'd like more than just big talk about damped rail flights. There was a story with Petrovich's reply on the matter of dolphins. When you record a video from the plane with the fixed camera that is tied to its center of mass, you see that it does feel like it swims like a dolphin if the situation is right. But if you look at the video from another angle, then the same video as this L-29, the drunk pilot above the runway is also like a dolphin, but he does not wobble all that much. I will allow myself to say that if Viktor can be considered a virtual pilot of virtual military aviation with a lot of experience under his belt, then I am also an experienced virtual pilot, and I have no objections to whatever I see on screen. Yes, there is a complaint about the handling at low speeds, but I did talk to Raman, and he did say that there are plans to add an aileron stall later on. The bells and whistles, the details. For the new project. Perhaps it will change the situation, perhaps it won't. But it does apply to critical and supercritical modes. While here's someone talking about rail flights in general. Guys, please don't say that. Plus, the tests that engineers run when fine-tuning the plane show about 2 to 3% deviation, which is minuscule. The question lies in the controllability. Even the flight simulators that are made for the professional pilots allow for more deviation. So this is basically a rhetorical question that is open for discussion and so on. No, it's not open for discussion. For there to be a discussion, a person must first present concrete research about the topic in question. At least a properly recorded video. Yes, we always ask to record videos, yet we are always told that, it's totally obvious. Next question. Will the machine gun belt stuffing tool get added? So, in a nutshell, filling a tape with bullets. The new project will have different options for belt stuffing. We did think about bullet-by-bullet stuffing. First you choose that bullet, then the next one, and so on. There is a different question. Will we have more than 84 planes during online play? Well, you can forget about that. Because as soon as you make a totally custom stuffing with random bullets, it will have to be immediately transmitted via the network. You can forget about optimization in that case too. But we do plan to create a more variable belt stuffing. It will be pretty variable to fulfill all the same demands, because the demand to this one, then this one, then make it red, doesn't reflect the reality in any way, since no one in real life does that. There will be a set of the most popular presets. Maybe we'll select them with the testers or the players, because of these technical limitations in multiplayer. Moving on. Is a clickable cockpit planned for the new project? To make a new clickable cockpit in the new project, the price of the new project on the market would have to be... Well, there is competition for those types of cockpits, and you know what kind of prices they have. So take those and multiply them by 10 planes in the project, and you will have the final price of the project, because of the level of details that the system algorithms would have. This will be the price. Would anyone buy it for that price? I wonder if we should start a crowdfunding campaign. You make the Pro module. You have the Yak 9, so you make a Pro update for it. People who want the clickable Yak 9 cockpit back it up. I wonder how many people would back that. I have no idea, but it's an option. We can look into it, of course. But one should remember that there would be a choice between this or that. And it's obvious that the quantity of the planes will go down. And even if we could do it for a large price, the quantity would still drop, because we wouldn't be able to find so many specialists on the Russian market to create the planes with such detailed systems. And not even the systems per se, but the level of their HUD details when the pilot interacts with them. We do have detailed systems that are at least on par with the competition, but their interfaces would require a lot of work. Next question. Are you collaborating with the team that's doing the Karelia maps? We did answer this question. Yes, we are. And if all goes well, you will see the result of the team's labor in spring. The next question is once again about the modifications. Will you implement? The question likely goes like this. Will you allow the Lag 3 to carry an RS-132 and a bomb starting with Series 11? Well, the question is a bit different. They are asking you, look, you already have Series 29 Lag 3s. They could carry both the bombs and the missiles, starting from Series 11. I never saw such photos of the Lag 3. I did leave this question in to ask you. I don't remember this either, especially the RS-132. The IL-2 has the RS-132, but I don't remember seeing them on the Lag. It'd be great if the person asking the question could provide a source for us. The fuel tanks on the Series 11 photo. The fuel tanks, yes. This person says they could carry the RS-132 starting with Series 11, but I don't remember that. Please give us the source. We'd love to look at such a photo. Next question. Judging by the sound, the Heinkel He-111 starts to breathe through the oxygen systems at the 4,000 meter mark, as they should. But no one puts their masks on. Is that an oversight? No, it's not. Do we have the old characters there? The old pilot models. We'll have to reanimate the crew of the two Heinkel planes, released years ago to be able to implement this, but our animator sadly does not have enough time to get that done now. We have already started working on that. We did create many new pilot animations for many of the planes. What are the new animations? Earlier, we had created the new pilot models, and they have to be animated for each individual plane. Heinkel has many crew members with complex animations, so it'll take. To make 2 Heinkels, Kostya Kruchkov said we will need about 3 months to implement all of this. You mean the animator? Yeah. Now you can see how tight the new plane release schedule is. We have a lot of tasks to get done for the new project as well. We'll have to see if we get the chance to implement this. But I can't promise anything right now, as we have a lot to do right now. Next question. As we keep moving on, will the game be opened up for extensive modding? So, basically modding. Modding empowerment? Yeah. Well, first of all, there are already many options for modding. You can change basically anything but the plane configurations. But let's be honest, dear friends. Right now, we don't have any mods that can be officially inserted into the game without any questions. They aren't polished, there are things missing, etc. Sadly, the mod system for this project did not meet our expectations. Why did it happen? Maybe because the good old days of the IL-2 1946 were much simpler from a technical standpoint. Not by a little, but by a lot. It took much less time, effort, and knowledge to have a good enough result. Now, first of all, you have to put in much more time to create a quality mod. And second, have a lot of skills and knowledge. Because we had a mod where a user had created new cloud types and there were nice screenshots. But that was about 3 years ago. So we take this mod, install it, and check it. These screenshots were made from the most favorable angles, but some of the clouds floating around were square-shaped, and they had to be checked at night and at dusk dawn. Yeah, high posterization, cloud walls that took up half the map, and there was cloud shimmering because of misaligned parameters. He's done a good job, but that really wasn't enough to get a result good enough to get included in the game officially. So I don't really believe that a modding system would really shine in the case of our project. Great battles support modding, but empower the modding. Is there anything to empower? In the new editor, there's also that important thing. We have to separate modding of the existing content and the creation of new content, because the Finnish users that are creating a new map are not modders, but are actual third-party content creators that make new content for the game. And we do plan to improve this area. The editor in our new project will allow the creation of a new map from scratch. The entire workflow is now included in the editor. You don't have to edit every single road bug in the vector editor finally. You create the road map once, then implement any changes in the mission editor, and that's a very simple and intuitive process. That goes for all aspects of a map. It will be much easier to create maps, for example. And we do our best to improve this area. On top of that, we are creating a detailed manual on creating 3D content. If someone wants to make a plane or an on-ground object, they will have much more info and clarity available than they have now. We are working on that. But modding in the purest sense of the word, when you just fiddle with already existing configs and the content, well, sorry, but I don't believe it will give good results. A question from Viritas. On a scale from 1 to 10, 1 is the start, 10 is the finish, where do you think that the new project actually is? I'd say we've completed about 40% of it. The next question is another anonymous one. Well, the other one was easy. Are we going to have multi-motor bombers? Yes. We told you everything about the new simplified plane technologies. So they will be implemented. They won't be controllable for now, though, because it's very expensive to make a controllable bomber. But if you're a fan of the bombers, like the B-26, and have the skills to make a cockpit model, why not? Come and make it, and we'll happily insert it into the project if we get the opportunity. Next question. Will you reconsider flight model upgrades for the FC plane? Back in the day when the Flying Circus project had just started, the previous producer, Jason Williams, decided that there won't be any changes made to the flight model compared to the previous project, Rise of Flight, from which the reworked models were being imported. Actually, the question is, will you reconsider a no-flight model changes paradigm? We always try to when we can. If you compare the recent Flying Circus planes, you'll see that we make changes whenever we can and when we are absolutely sure of them. So yes, we do make changes. The problem is that for Flying Circus, it's hard to prove that the changes are necessary. We did discuss that book about the flight models of World War I earlier, and even its author didn't prove his point. He did express it, but we can't verify it. He made his own flight model. But where are the guarantees that it's correct? He didn't provide enough source data. But we've already talked about that. Will we see more gliders after the released CG-4A like the G11, Airspeed Horsa, and the DFS-230? That all depends on you guys. We released the glider just days ago, and if it suddenly sells on the level of our collector's planes, then why not? Moving on. Will there ever be aces as individuals in this game like in Red Baron or Wings over Flanders Fields? No, that's not it. They're asking whether there will be aces as individuals in the game like in Red Baron or Wings over Flanders Fields. No, I understand that individual aces means a unique pilot with unique behavior. There was this feature that allowed picking not just the ace AI level, but the Pokryshkin AI level. I think that question is about that. Well, I will tell you this. Let us fine-tune the regular AI first. We have to fix it. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, I can imagine the scope of discussion about how Pokryshkin didn't fight like that. Yeah, we have an AI now, so we have to fix that. Next question is from Sergeant Josh. Any plans for VR performance improvements as DCS has done? DCS didn't have performance improvements for VR at all. It was at the statistical error level. The performance was very bad there, and now they have taken emergency measures to get VR working. It works now, but our VR performance was initially good. There's a reason we placed for best VR simulation some years ago. When we have a situation where our competitors have beaten us in those things, we will definitely be concerned about it. Actually, in this case, work is going on all the time. Rendering being improved, the aforementioned DirectX 12 being added, it's all done in parallel. We know what it's all about. Yeah, it's all connected. As for these technologies, we've looked at what kind of performance gains they will give. We know about them, but currently it just so happens that we have enough VR performance reserve. Next question. Any chance of seeing the engine timer system revised or maybe even removed entirely? Like we have on the P40 and, in general, the damage model at maximum operating modes. I can tell you about the P40. In Great Battles, the P40 will be improved, but we didn't have time to include it in the version that's out now. But I think we will most likely add it in the update at the end of winter. What about the timers themselves? It's the physics that breaks the engine. The approach to this is probably going to change too because, let me remind you, we're expanding the variability of engine damage. And what gets damaged in it now as a result of running in emergency modes for too long can also be changed. But here's another thing. We have an early version of the P40 there, the one received by the Soviet Air Force, and its engine, the Allison V1710-39, does not run in emergency mode. And a little bit later, we had those documents that added emergency mode there. With increased boost. We had an idea to make a mod of that. I think Roman was planning something like that. Yeah, we'll see. A free modification will most likely be added to the existing plane. Is there any type of plan to allow for third-party or user map mods, i.e. Africa, Malta, Italy, etc.? Well, we've said it before. Look, there are two maps being made by third parties, Karelia and Odessa. Thus, such a possibility already exists in great battles. So an enthusiast team can do it, and many of the maps can be made if they correspond more or less to the terrain and type of development of what is already there, with those assets that are already there, using the same buildings, the same textures. You only have to assemble your map, so you are welcome to. And as I said, there's a whole toolkit being created in the new project to expand those possibilities. Next question. Is Korea going to be expanded? I love the new missions and how many things have been added. I would love to have more features too. Maybe even a co-op mode. We answered about the mission types before, that we have new guys making and adding new mission types to existing careers, so those are already being expanded. The question about the cooperative mode is good, but I don't know yet. As for the cooperative mode, here's the deal. We discussed it, and the issue is that if we want to have a good cooperative mode, it will be necessary that we hosted the servers ourselves. Not the way it is now, where a player sets up a server themselves, because before, 10 years ago, it was not a problem to set up a server yourself, at least in Russia, because no providers were up to any nonsense like closing ports. So you could set up a server and have people connect to you without any problems. Now, internet providers close these opportunities and either demand money for letting you forward ports through your router, or don't give you the opportunity at all. At least that's what's going on in Russia, but I don't know how it is in the United States or in the West. A very similar thing, perhaps. And thus, if we want a co-op mode to work well, we'll need to set up co-op servers on our services, through Amazon or something else. And then the question arises, how much all of this will pay for itself? Because server hosting is not a free pleasure. Because, in our case, it's not a Counter-Strike game. And when complex objects such as planes and ground vehicles rush into a server, taking 2 or 3 processor cores, in the case of a dedicated server, it's one processor core, but nevertheless a whole core. You can set up one game server on one hardware core, and if there are 8 cores, you can set up 8, and so on. And financially, it doesn't really pay the cost to have the reserve for many co-op games. So it's a complicated question, but we're not dismissing it, because co-op in Korea, or in scripted campaigns, or in single missions, we'd really like to do it ourselves. Next question. It's really 2 questions in one. Do you plan on developing the mission editor further, adding capabilities, trigger types, the ability to make one flight join up with another, etc.? Do we plan to expand the features of the editor, add new triggers, new types of triggers, and so on? And what about the possibility to make composite flights? I mean, when you have a group, you can attach one group to the other. As we said, we are expanding the editor. We produce new types of triggers as necessary. Viktor is usually the one requesting new types of triggers. By the way, a year or a year and a half ago, we added add value and set value. Those also helps a lot. So we're gradually adding things. If you are personally making a campaign, and we have people in the community making campaigns, and you need a certain trigger, contact us and we'll discuss it with you. As for composite flights, no, we won't have them because they don't fit the architecture. Here's a question. What will happen to an attached flight? What orders will it execute? It's important to understand that this is a cohesive system for distributing mission orders. And in the new project? In the new project too. Can the VR performance of the game be improved? Can the button mapping be improved? 128 buttons per USB device. Well, we've already responded to this. And is it possible to expand the number of buttons that can be programmed? Well, right now we have a limit of 128. We implement as many buttons and axes in the game as direct input allows. So this question isn't even for us. The next question has to do with the behavior of wingman crews. The main question from me is related to AI wingmen and crew. Is it possible to make communication and response from AI wingmen at least somewhat realistic? It's about development. I already talked about it. Can you make a more appropriate response from wingmen to the lead's orders? As I already said, this is the direction we are going to take development in the new project, in any case. Next question. Will we get another TC module? It's quite possible in the new project, although unlikely in great battles, because even if our partners don't want to make it on a pure partnership basis, when all profits are shared, then maybe we will make it ourselves. It's a business question. Next question. Will the P-47 get its FM looked at fixed in the immediate future? From what I've heard from Rahman, he recognizes that it has some problems, and he planned on dealing with them in the first half of 2024. Next question. The previous producer, Jason, planned to do a Malta, Sicily, Italy module, which was a long-awaited theater, at least by me, never been done before. The previous producer, Jason, didn't take into account that it was almost impossible to implement such a dense and large-scale urban development with the great battles technologies, because the performance over such a busy, populated terrain would have been really bad. It would have run at 20 frames per second, plus new content, Rome, other cities, but the main thing is what I just said. And in the new project, we are creating a technology for mass urban development that will make that possible. And it is in the new project that such maps can become possible with time. Not immediately, since for now, we can say that we are not currently doing Italy. And most importantly, they'll be much easier to create. The very principle of city content creation is not only several times more optimized in terms of performance, it is also optimized in terms of the production process. But does this regard the question of the new project developing new high-density settlement development technologies? Yeah. Next question. Samikats asks, as far as he knows, there are no plans to add seaplanes to Flying Circus. But are there any plans to develop them in a future series? I know the seaplanes are not planned for the current Flying Circus releases, but is there a plan to revisit the technology in some form in the series? We've already said that after the project we're doing now, we want to do the Pacific after that, and we would like to make the Catalina. I hope it will be successful. You understand that right now, we are at the end of 2023, and I'm talking about things that will happen in about 2.5 years from now, so I can't guarantee anything. But we have such ideas and mindset, because we really would like to implement the Catalina, even though it's a really complex plane. Next question. I'd like to know why crappy video games like World of Tanks, War Thunder, and even Gunner Heat PC are marketing circles around Han and 1C. Every time I fire up YouTube, all I see is their advertising. I see no IL-2 advertising. Why? He's talking about the recommendations when he looks at our videos. War Thunder or something like World of Tanks pops up in the recommendations after them. It's how the YouTube algorithms work. Naturally, War Thunder and World of Tanks have an audience many times larger than we do, and there are many times more views on YouTube on this topic than ours. And how do the YouTube algorithms work? They suggest things with maximum popularity, and that's why they suggest this. What can we do about it? It's impossible to do anything because realistic flight simulators are a niche genre after all. Are we going to make everyone fly in super detailed simulators and force them to abandon all sorts of arcade games? Let's be realistic. Well, perhaps only IL-2 will be left after a nuclear war, along with the cockroaches. Next question. Any update on the possibility of adding the AQMB, Advanced Quick Mission Builder, to the rest of the World War II maps, and then some World War I maps as well? I'll answer that. We'll try. After we have the full Flying Circus Volume 3 map released, we're going to add the AQMB to it, and probably to other maps as well. We'll probably also add a glider mission where you follow a C-47, pull the handle, and land somewhere as well. Next question. Do you plan on finishing the Rhineland map, which lacks development in the Bastogne area? This is the same as the question about the maps of Malta, Italy, and so on. No, it's a question about the Rhineland map. It has the Bastogne area. It's absolutely empty. There's nothing there. And will that ever be changed by us? The answer to that question is probably no, it won't. Because when the map was being developed, the input from our then producer Jason William was as follows. We have to do as many airfields as possible on this map while sacrificing the development of the map scene itself. That was implemented. The map has as many airfields as possible, but its appearance as a natural object and the development of its different areas were sacrificed. To change it now? Why? It was known from the beginning, and Jason openly stated it. It was never hidden from anyone. The product is exactly what it was originally designed to be, and that's what it is now. To spend another year now on this map, and we would need to spend as much to make that map look like Normandy does. To spend another year now on this map, and we would need to spend as much to make that map look like Normandy does. Do you expect us not to eat it all? Major Maggie asks. It seems like it would be a simple thing to provide us with AI infantry detachments, as we have with the Normandy US and Brits. Hey, look, we made infantry units for Normandy, and there are 5 men running around with rifles. And do you plan to do the same for other nations? Apparently, people liked it. We did it for Normandy for the reason that there was no way to do it without them. They were absolutely necessary for implementing the landing. When landing boats approach the beach, the infantry run out of them, like in Saving Private Ryan, against the German concrete pillboxes. As for the other nations, we didn't plan to do anything in other missions that would make that necessary. But we could add it now in theory. It's unlikely in great battles, but we plan to develop this theme extensively in the new project, because not only will it have infantry rifle units created for different nations, but in general there are plans to make a rifle squad, a submachine gun squad, a mortar squad, when there is a number of people with a mortar who run, place it and fire it, and a machine gun squad. There will be about 4 or 5 variations of those squads for every nation. This will be developed in the new project. Next question. Are there any plans to increase the MP server player limit to more than 84 players? Doesn't it frustrate you that even with the 84 player limit, a full server doesn't always run very smoothly? It's at the limit of its performance. The number 84 didn't come out of thin air. This is a calculated number of players, the maximum number of players on the server chosen by mutual concession, beyond which serious slowdowns begin. There are ideas of optimizing the network in the new project that could be implemented, but they will hardly improve the situation by a factor of 2. And if we plan any optimization, we would like to spend it to make the fully stuffed multiplayer game less laggy, not to increase the number of players. And that was the last question. Yes, that was the last question. Thank you for being with us. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon. And many thanks to our friends at Game World Navigator for setting up this session. Until we meet again, so long.